looking at how consolidation might occur in the lithium industry, we've seen some changes occur in recent months. Everybody's talking to each other. So it is quite an exciting time in that respect, but we are very much focused on ensuring that we can keep our timeline to production, as I say, complete all the steps, all the hurdles that we require so that we can actually break ground and then take the project through.
What's the current situation of the overall lithium market, and where is our Atlantic Lithium at on its way to production on its hard rock lithium mine called Ewoyaa in Ghana? Today with me is Niall Herbert. He's the executive chairman of the company called Atlantic Lithium. First of all, Niall, thank you very much for your time again. It's great having you and to hear a little bit more about your latest updates.
Good to be here again.
So, Neil, before we go into all the exciting milestones that you achieved already, because we talked here like 3 or 4 months ago, and you talked about the things that you are going to do, and you said so, and you delivered. Let's maybe talk about the lithium market here first and overall. We have seen by the beginning of this year, let's say 80% crash in the lithium prices, and all the big lithium mines have come down. You're actually working on a very cheap project, so you would still be profitable with ASICs way below 700 US. But give us an update about the general market. Is it recovering again? What is the outlook for the next years? That would be really interesting to know.
Yeah, so obviously the lithium market has been a real roller coaster, and it's been running from boom to bust. So if you look at the market in recent history, not very long ago, the lithium concentrate price briefly reached over $6,000, and today it's about 740. So that's obviously the product that we'll be making. But as you pointed out, our all-in sustaining costs are well below that, and in fact, our C1 cash costs much below that. So we are probably the standout development project out there in the world today. I don't think anyone has as lower numbers as we do. In that respect, though, you have to look at the market as a whole and what's happening. And a lot of that movement in price has been because so much production was suddenly rushed forward and the market couldn't absorb it because the prices were high. And this is kind of a typical problem in the mining industry. Every time we have a really high price, this is what happens. But the reality is the trend remains for very strong growth in demand. So all this additional production that has been brought forward, 2 things are happening. Is that one, there's a fight to reduce costs, which in some cases cannot be achieved. And the second is, of course, mines actually shutting down. In the meantime, the background for demand is phenomenal. So we're looking at steady double-digit growth in demand every year for lithium. And if you compare that to any other mineral I've worked in, this has never happened before, because obviously demand is relatively new. So the demand for lithium was very small if you go back a decade. Now it's been growing very rapidly. And indeed, this feeds through from EVs. So if you look at the EV market today, it's reached around $250 billion a year of EVs. We're looking out 10 years, and there's some studies out again today looking at 2.1 trillion market in 10 years' time. And so that steady growth and demand has increased. And in the same time, we're seeing more data out today showing that actually EVs are now cheaper than actually having gasoline cars comparatively, and some recommendations out showing that battery life has reached over 20 years, which is one of the great fears. So these are studies that have been put out in the press today, which I think is quite exciting, showing that actually EVs are a more efficient form of vehicle, and indeed in all the benefits for the climate as well.
Great, great. And you're on your path to production. I think you said in our last interview that you're aiming for 2026. So there is still a little bit to go before you go into production. Are you expecting higher prices by then, or what is your expectations there?
So what I would expect is that the next year or so, we'll continue to see production being quite constrained simply because of the low prices. And few of our competitors can actually produce profitably at this level. We have to point that out. And as a result of which, it's disencouraging for a lot of people to come forward with new projects. Ours is, as I say, one of the few exceptions with a very low cost base, which makes it very attractive to take the project forward. And because of this very high growth in demand, all that extra production of lithium is going to be absorbed relatively quickly. So looking out to 2026, and obviously we talk to offtake groups, and they are still very, very interested in supply for 2026 because they don't see where it's going to be available for chemical conversion plants, which feeds into EV batteries.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much. So let's talk about the updates at Atlantic Lithium. I mean, we touched on the story already, and just to have the key points out, right? We're talking about a very low-cost project. You said it's probably the lowest cost development project on the market right now. You are in Ghana, which is a mining-friendly jurisdiction. I think they have like 100 years of mining history. So that's all really good. And now you just got your EPA permit, which is a very important environmental permit. You also did your MRE upgrade, and I think there is more to come. Let's talk a little bit more about the milestones.
Yes, so we're obviously working through all the permitting hurdles at the moment, so we can actually break ground on the project. A little bit of frustration in that we were hoping to get the ratification by Parliament of our mining lease, which was actually issued a year ago, through in July. And obviously having a discussion with the relative authorities as to why this wasn't done, and they wanted to do some additional consultations before they'd done that. They've done those additional consultations. They did effectively a session in Parliament relatively recently with all the affected parties. The paramount chiefs who represent our local communities were very much present at that and supportive of the mine. So we understand that all the boxes are ticked. The parliamentary session is now confirmed to begin on the 15th of October. And as I say, we're getting reassurances from several sides that our ratification will be done in that. So that's a very important step. At the same time, we're proceeding with the other major permitting step, which is more administrative, which is the operating permit, which is another key permit that we need. But obviously, that's not subject to the availability of Parliament to process. So that's a more routine matter. And there are several other lesser permits that we're working through at the same time. But as you say, very importantly, we got through that key environmental hurdle, which is the last of the environmental approvals that we required. So looking forward to a situation where we have substantially completed that permitting this year. And so we were hoping to break ground before the end of the year. With the delay with that ratification, and we'd certainly push it into next year now, but not very much into next year. So I'm not expecting a big delay. And we look forward to receiving that ratification from Parliament in due course.
Okay, and are you expecting any delay with the building the mine because of this short delay here? Are you expecting to go live in 2027 instead, or are you still aiming for 2026?
As it stands today, we could still achieve production in 2026. It's all dependent on achieving the permitting. I must say, I mean, it doesn't really make a significant difference overall in terms of the mine life here. And obviously the projected mine life is 12 years, but probably the mine will run for 20 or 30 years. And so changes in actual dates when we might start production of maybe 3 or 4 months don't really make that much difference overall. Obviously very important to us and my staff as we work through all the processing, but actually to the performance of the mine overall, it makes no difference at all. But yes, it will probably feed into a couple of months of delay of actually getting to production. But at this moment in time, frankly, nothing significant.
Okay, perfect. And if we have a look back into your history, you already got 2 takeover offers by larger companies, and you have not accepted both of them. Obviously, this is why we are still here. Now you're way cheaper than you have been before. I mean, this must be the most attractive thing in the world for larger companies. Why is nobody giving you an offer right now? Or do you don't want to have an offer right now? So give us a little bit more insights, if you can, on how attractive you are compared to the overall market on potential new lithium mines out there.
So there are, what invariably happens, and if anybody who has experience with the mining cycle knows, is when you get to these lower prices, normally everybody comes around and talks about industry consolidation, and lithium is no exception to that. And indeed, people are talking about industry consolidation, and people come and talk to me about industry consolidation. And everything out there is possible. I think that the key one, what I would say, is that regardless of whether we're an independent producer or we end up being acquired by a larger company, the process is still the same. We have to go through all the processes to make sure that we de-risk the project, that it can go to production, that we can break ground, and actually be able to do that independently, because that ensures the value is created. And it's great, isn't it? If somebody comes along and makes a premium offer to your shareholders and your shareholders accept that offer, that's a great outcome. But if you like, the steps in terms of management are the same. We are de-risking the project, making sure we can keep it on a good timeline to take it to production and keeping our costs down. So yes, it is a very interesting time, because there are now a lot of people looking at how consolidation might occur in the lithium industry. We've seen some changes occur in recent months. Everybody's talking to each other. So it is quite an exciting time in that respect, but we are very much focused on ensuring that we can keep our timeline to production, as I say, complete all the steps, all the hurdles that we require so that we can actually break ground and then take the project through.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for the update. I mean, as we already said, we have pitched or talked about the company in more detail already in a different video. We also talked on our German YouTube channel about the company. So for our investors, they can do all their due diligence around the video. But maybe for the end, Neil, you can just give the investors a little bit of an outlook. I mean, the share price has come down a little bit since we talked last time, probably because of the delay with the permits and all this kind of stuff. So what is your expectation for the next 12 months? Are you going to deliver all the milestones that we talked about? Is there anything that could delay any further? What is your feeling here? Your last words for your investors?
Yeah, so in terms of the administrative permitting side, I think very much I expect that to come in as we expect. We're completing all the requirements. We have a high bar on what we do, so I expect all that to be done. Ratification, obviously, is probably one of the most problematic because it requires Parliament to be sitting and indeed not to have other business so that we actually get processed through it. We've been, however, given a lot of reassurances that we will see the ratification during the coming session. So obviously not in our control, but we are very hopeful to get that. And if that gets done, frankly, all the steps that would be required to take us through to breaking ground would be as planned. And as set out previously. So overall, I think the outlook's very good. I think the backdrop for the industry and people will see as we go through the next 12 months or so, we'll start to see the lithium price firm up. And indeed, as we move forward to the date that we might see production, I'm actually expecting to see a significant hike in the lithium price again, based simply on all the increasing demand that continues to grow.
Great. So just to summarize, we have a lot of triggers for the company to have a higher share price in the future, right? We do have your milestones that you are going to achieve. Hopefully, we also have the lithium price, which is probably now at the bottom. I think nobody would have thought that we go this low. So higher lithium prices would also help. In my opinion, this seems to be a good opportunity. Would you agree?
Oh, I do. I mean, I think obviously, as you've said, we took a hit in the share price when the ratification didn't come in July. So there is some opportunity around that, and particularly with the milestones now coming up again with this opportunity in October to get their ratification done, but also the operating permit and the remaining permitting steps to ensure that we can actually break ground. So an exciting time for the company. We look forward to providing investors with news flow as we go forward.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. I'm looking forward to your new milestones, new news upcoming. And thank you very much for the update. Neil, have a great day and talk to you soon.
Will do. Look forward to it.